Hey, this is Zane Simon from BloodyElbow.com. I was supposed to be joined by Eddie Mercado tonight, but technical difficulties, Google Hangouts being a bitch, he could not make it. So it's me going solo, flying through this UFC Portland card for a recap. Dodson versus Lineker. Main event ended just now. Really seems like a controversial main event for a lot of people. I'm kind of feeling like, for the history of a lot of the fans out there and the way fans like to talk, it's probably better off in the long run that Lineker won this, because otherwise it'd be one of those fights that you'd be hearing about for years to come. Another Nick Diaz versus Carlos Condit, where Condit winning became this sore point of angry fan contention for the next few years. Lineker winning that's the fighter that I think a lot of fans wanted to win. That's the style a lot of fans like to see win. So even though Dodson landed a few more strikes throughout the fight, landed at a much higher percentage than Lineker, who threw like 300 and something punches and only landed about 100 of them. Despite that, it was a really close fight, and Lineker was pressing the action. Fans like that. The reason that Diego Sanchez and guys like that have been fan favorites for years, win or lose. And Lineker is very much, he's a better puncher than a lot of those guys, a much better puncher than guys like Sanchez or Garcia or the other wild, high volume strikers before him. But that's still a little bit of what this decision is. This is Lineker pressing the fight, so he gets the win. I had no problem with it either way. I scored the fight even through 2 rounds, 2 rounds apiece through 4, or even through 4 rounds, I should say, 2 rounds apiece. And that last round was damn close. Both guys landed good shots. Lineker seemed to be doing more damage to the body, getting Dodson to double over. But Dodson also stung Lineker once, got up on his back, was threatening him. It was a really close round, really close fight, really fun. A lot of fans seemed to be booing or hating on Dodson for his stick and move style. But, I mean, what's he really going to do? Is he just going to stand in front of Lineker and wait for Lineker to punch him? It is what it is. I enjoyed the fight a lot. I enjoyed the decision a lot. I thought it was a great fight throughout, and a good capper to a solid night of fights, made better by a lot of exciting upsets and sloppy brawls. In the co-main event, Alex Oliveira beat Will Brooks. Really kind of took a lot of the class out of it by doing the whole flipping off thing and chopping his crotch at Brooks and all that. I get that the Cowboy was pissed off that Brooks called him out for missing weight so bad, but he missed weight by a ton. If anybody deserves to get called out for doing a bad job, it's somebody who does a really bad job. Still, that fight, it kind of went a lot like I feared. I was picking Brooks. I mean, a lot of why I was picking Brooks in that fight was based on his potential, based on his technical game, his sort of the thinking man's fighter kind of thing. But the truth is that he was not a massively better striker than Oliveira, and he's never been an amazing dominating takedown artist. He hit some nice takedowns in that fight against Oliveira, but he spent a lot of time getting trapped up against the fence and just getting beat up. The early body work that Oliveira did hurt Brooks bad. I mean, you can call it a fluke injury if you want, that Brooks got to his rib, but that injury is caused by the work that Oliveira did. And Oliveira being able to do the work he was able to do has a lot to do with him not being a great finisher, and Oliveira being a massive lightweight who came in overweight and had this big size advantage to press in that fight. And it's just Brooks is going to have a hell of a hard time being a decision fighter at lightweight. Once you get below middleweight, especially, and just in general at the highest levels of the sport, it's really hard to be a decision fighter at an elite level. When you get near the top, most guys who get up there have a track record of being strong finishers. They're dangerous fighters. And if you're going to give everybody 3 rounds to work, you're not going to win as often as somebody who can get a lot of knockouts, who can get a lot of submissions, who can get a lot of guys out there quick or be dangerous enough that they have to really respect that. And that's something that Will Brooks is going to struggle with. He does not have a strong track record of being a great finisher. And at an elite level, there are too many dangerous guys up there. So it's both a really crappy loss because it does nothing, or it's a really crappy win because it does nothing for Alex Oliveira's hype or profile. He came off like a jerk. He missed weight. He's fighting in the wrong division, so he's moving up to welterweight anyway. And it's a bad loss for Will Brooks because it showed that he can be outmuscled and even finished by somebody who's bigger and more dangerous than him. So it was a fun fight, but a really disappointing loss, a really disappointing result if you're a fan of Brooks, and a really just kind of disappointing result in general because nobody really came off any better for it. Below that, Josh Berkman drifted to a split decision loss against Zach Otto. Berkman is just slowly become a less and less fun fighter to watch than ever. This isn't the worst loss of Berkman's career. You know, he's had some other bad losses before, but this is the worst loss maybe in his recent run. It's certainly the worst loss of his UFC run, you know, losing to Hector Lombard, losing to Dong Young Kim, even losing to Patrick Cote and Paul Felder. Those guys are all, even if they're not all elite fighters, even if Cote and Felder aren't elite fighters, they're good, strong, established action fighters. Otto's just some dude. He looked good. He looked better than normal. But he's still kind of known for being an all-action or all-offense, no defense, pretty green fighter who has come in with a history of being a Hulk and kind of out-hulking and out-grappling guys, and he just outworked Berkman for a patient 3-round decision. Berkman doesn't pull the trigger. He doesn't seem to fight to win. He's just kind of out there trying to feel his way through the fight, and mostly he drifts to really boring, ugly decision losses. So if Berkman's gone after this fight, I wouldn't be surprised at all. See, below that, Brandon Moreno got a huge upset over Louis Smolka. Now, I remember talking to Tom Grant about this not long ago, and he's talking about if, you know, even between really good grappler, like you have a really good grappler and a really bad grappler, if they go through, you know, 100 matches, that the great grappler might win 95 of them, and those 5 losses are probably all going to be guillotine losses, because that's just the way that even a bad grappler even a worse grappler can catch an opponent there. People stick their neck out, they get clinched up in a hurry, and suddenly you're going out, and there's just nothing you can do, no way to fight it. That seemed kind of like what happened here. Smolka, I feel like he let Moreno take him down early, and he was doing a good job generating offense off his back, keeping Moreno on the defensive above him. Then he created some space, shot in for a takedown, ran the pipe, put his head right into Moreno's arms, gave him his neck, and Moreno choked him out. It was a beautiful guillotine. It was really well worked. It was an amazing upset, and Moreno's probably going to get thrown to the wolves because of it. I mean, Smolka is a pretty high-ranked dude, so even if they wanted to slow play Moreno a little bit, giving him somebody like Ben Nguyen or something, there's a lot of guys out there who I don't know how equipped Moreno is to compete. He's a fun action fighter, a fun scrappy fighter, but this feels like one of those wins that you get a huge win that throws you right into the teeth of somebody really dangerous afterwards. So I'll be interested to see what Moreno does after this. Certainly the guy looks like he's got a great story going for him. This is an amazing way to start his UFC career, but I don't know how much future success it's going to translate to. Before that, closing out the FS2 card, Luis Enrique de Silva, Luis Frankenstein beat Joachim Christensen. Big battle of bruising light heavyweights, both guys flat-footed, both guys standing and trading a lot. Christensen let himself get back down a lot, and every time he did, he seemed to get kind of beat up. And then finally, he hurt Enrique de Silva, clipped him with a big knee, dropped him. But by the time he was able to do that, he'd taken such a beating from Frankenstein that he was just exhausted and tried to kind of ride Frankenstein out, lay on him, get his breath back. And Frankenstein was able to initiate a scramble, sweep him, and then suddenly slap on an armbar for the submission win. Nice win from Frankenstein. He's still not the prettiest technical fighter, but he hits hard. He's tough as hell. And if you give him an inch, he's going to take it and try and find a way to hurt somebody. So I'm definitely excited to see him keep developing. If nothing else, he's got legit size for a light heavyweight. He's 6 foot, and he looks like he carries 205 pounds really well. Big features, big frame. Definitely not a middleweight playing around in the light heavyweight division. So fun fight. I'm still excited to see what Christensen can do here in the future. He's tough. He hits hard. He's willing to strike, willing to trade. And there are a lot of not that great light heavyweights out there for him to fight. So I think he can still make a bit of a splash, but I don't know that he's going to move up into, out into the top 15 of that division. And considering that division's only 30 people deep, it's really all the good fighters and then everybody else. And Christensen is probably everyone else. Before that, Andre Fili got a pretty decent decision win over Hakran Diaz. Diaz took over in the third round and finally got the fight he wanted mostly. Able to finally wrestle and control Fili a bit, although Fili did sweep him right at the end and land some good shots. But for the first 2 rounds, Fili was able to just create too much activity. Diaz is not a fighter who pushes a good pace. He fights with a very slow, measured, take whatever opportunities are there, but don't press anything else. He's not somebody that's going to knock somebody out or submit them or anything like that. He's just there to grind guys, and Fili was a little too chaotic for him. Hurt him early, was able to push through the first round, and then the second round, even when Diaz had success, Fili was able to recapture momentum, create the bigger moments of offense, and put on a good performance. A performance that even coming off his loss to Yair Rodriguez, if we consider Yair Rodriguez, a guy on the rise up to being a highlight, top of the division, top 5 fighter, Fili's maybe somebody that's coming into more of his own. His losses in the long run don't look so bad. Max Holloway, Godofredo Castro, and Yair Rodriguez. And this Hakran Diaz win, Diaz is a borderline top 15 fighter. So Fili has a chance to separate himself from that Sam Sicilia, Maximo Blanco morass of like 5-5 featherweights that are fun action fighters, but lose as often as they win. Before that, big heavyweight bout, Shamil Abdurakhimov versus Walt Harris. Not the worst heavyweight fight, not great. Harris just isn't diverse enough. He's fast and he's got power, but all he's doing is kickboxing. It's pretty fundamentally basic kickboxing. He's not really an advanced striker. And Abdurakhimov is at least able to change things up, throw in a little wrestling, able to flurry a little better, land a few more creative strikes. He's got that wushu background, just a little more polished on the feet. Outworked Harris for a 3-round decision. Wasn't an amazing fight, but by heavyweight standards, they were still throwing and working at least a little in the 3rd round. Let's see. Then before that, opening up the FS2 card, Elizeu Zaleski beat Kaita Nakamura. Really surprisingly decent showing from Zaleski. Nakamura put him in all kinds of bad positions, took his back, threatened with rear naked chokes. But for a guy that throws as hard as Zaleski does, and he drops some bombs, just is constantly throwing huge punches. Zaleski looks like he has a really surprisingly great gas tank. Even in round 3 of that fight, he was able to hit a big suplex straight into a rear naked choke attempt that he then turned into a Japanese necktie. And he was just chaining together a lot of really great offense, which for a guy who throws as hard as he does in the third round of a fight, I expect a dude like him to be going that Eric Silva route, looking like he's slogging through mud, just trying to stay alive. Nakamura was decent. He's exactly the fighter you expect, kind of, very has that zombie-like offense of consistent pressure and this really awkward kickboxing, hard as hell to hurt. Will always stick in there, throw these unexpectedly decent head kicks and lunging straight punches that catch guys off guard. But he's also, for rounds when he gets back control, if he's not actually actively threatening with a rear naked choke or creating something out of that back control, he just doesn't create that much offense. And Zaleski, every moment he had to strike with Nakamura, it seemed like he hurt Nakamura. He dropped huge shots on him. He just created the better individual offensive moments in that fight. So I was fine with him getting the score or getting the win. It was a close fight. There's certainly some argument to be made that Nakamura might have won it, but Zaleski looked good, honestly. He looked like a welterweight who can develop and be a really fun fighter in the future with his gas tank and his power. Then on the Fight Pass card, the final bout of the Fight Pass card was Nate Marquardt versus Tamden McCrory. Marquardt knocking out McCrory, and it's time. I love the Barn Cat. He's great. He's fun to watch, but he has a serious problem with distance striking. It was one thing to say, like, oh, maybe he got caught by Krzysztof Jotko. But Marquardt knocking him out almost the exact same way of just that at distance, McCrory's too tall, too wooden, is just too out there to be hit, does not produce enough consistent offense, is a little too got that sort of baby deer syndrome where he gets hit and then everything just kind of goes rubbery. He's a tall dude, and a lot of tall dudes tend to just get crumpled by big punchers from outside. And McCrory being not a great wrestler to go with that, he's really limited to a strong, aggressive inside dirty boxing and clinch game, and then a good grappling game when he can get solid positions. He's good off his back. He's good in top control. He's a good scrambler, but Marquardt's a really seasoned vet, was able to shut down McCrory's grappling, and that really left McCrory with the option of, can he get inside and create enough offense to hurt Marquardt, or he's just going to be outside getting pot-shotted, and Marquardt was able to knock him out with a nice head kick punch combo, and I don't know how much further McCrory goes at that point in the middleweight division. I mean, this is a dude that when he came in and took out and beat Josh Saman, it was like, oh, is McCrory just going to suddenly insert himself as a top 15 fighter? And now with back-to-back KO losses to Marquardt and Jotko, it seems like the answer is no. It seems like he's going to slide back into the middle of that huge swath of action fighters and weird matchups that middleweight has outside the top 15. Before that, Ion Cutelaba put a pretty good beating on Jonathan Wilson. Wilson looked tough as hell, but he kind of played the role of a practice fighter in a fighting game, when you set it on the mode where like maybe the computer will throw like one strike every 30 seconds and otherwise it just doesn't get hurt and it lets you practice all your special moves that you want to set up. That's kind of what this fight was. Cutelaba just teed off on Wilson for most of this fight. And credit to Wilson, he never seemed seriously injured. He never went down. He stayed with Cutelaba the whole way through. But, I had Cutelaba winning like 30-26, just absolutely beating Wilson easily. So it was a strong showing from Cutelaba, who looks like a really fun, athletic, hard-punching light heavyweight. I don't know that he'll ever be any kind of great fighter the truth is, though, he's only 22. Like, he's athletic, he's hard punching, and he's solid, and he's only 22 years old with a solid amount of experience already under his belt. So if he can keep building off that and improve the rest of his game around his boxing, he could be a fun, solid action fighter in the top 15 for a while. I mean, we've seen some of the people that are clinging on to the top 15 of that division. It does not take a lot to get to being a good light heavyweight. You don't have to be much more than reasonably consistent. Even John Vellante and Antonio Rogerio Nogueira are still top 15 light heavyweights. Like, it's just not that hard a talent pool to get into. So Kudalava may be on the rise there. Wilson, on the other hand, he basically came into the UFC without any legit pro fights. Came out of Gladiator Challenge, crushing cans. He had never faced serious competition before the UFC at all. And so every real fight he's had is in the UFC. Came into this fight essentially 1-1, and he's showing that he's tough enough to be there. He's strong enough. He's a good enough athlete. He just needs a lot more seasoning against good competition. So I don't know. I'm still interested in Wilson going forward, but I don't know how many more losses like that he can take before the UFC gets rid of him and he's forced to do the rest of his developing out on the regional circuit. Before that, Curtis Blades heavyweight fight. Curtis Blades beat Cody East. Blades looked pretty solid in this fight. He still has some development to do. His striking was not on the level of East's at all, but he's huge and he's tough and he's got power and he's a really powerful wrestler in a way that most heavyweights just aren't. I think for a lot of guys, when they're that big, it's really hard for them to get that really great drive on their takedowns. You see a lot of heavyweights, even good wrestlers like Jared Rosholt, who didn't have great blast doubles. They would be good at chain wrestlers, getting a guy up against the fence, dropping for a single, switching to a double, working position, dragging a guy down to the ground. But there are very few big guys that actually create real drive to hit big blast double takedowns, and Curtis Blades is one of those dudes. He had a takedown on East in the middle of that fight where he just popped through East's hips, blew him off his feet. And it was the kind of takedown that it's just like, maybe 5 heavyweights in the world can hit a takedown like that. So the rest of the time, Blade still needs to work on his control. He needs to work on his boxing, but he's big and powerful, and he was able to dominate enough positions to get it to finally force East to kind of quit under him. I mean, I don't want to say quit, but he's stuck himself in a really bad position and just got bombed on with elbows, a few of them to the back of the head until the ref was forced to call it off. I mean, he was able to force East into a really difficult fight that East was not going to win. East started trying to out wrestle him, and that was just not going to work for Cody East. So I'm excited about Curtis Blades off that fight. He looked a lot more like the fighter I expected going into that Francis Ngannou fight that he lost. So that was exciting. And the opening bout, Ketlin Vieira took a split decision off Kelly Fashels. I thought it was a pretty clear decision for Vieira. Fashels threw way too many kicks in the first 2 rounds, let herself get taken down way too often. She probably could have won this fight if she just kept it a boxing match. She had better hands, much more consistent output, just a better puncher than Vieira. And she showed it in the 3rd round, really lit Vieira up for a lot of that round and beat her up. But the first 2 rounds, she couldn't stop herself from throwing bad, unset up kicks that Vieira could catch and take her down and work her over from top position for a long time. So not an important fight, not an amazing fight from either one, but both women look like they're at least a good size to be in the bantamweight division. So if they can keep developing, that can be a good sign for the future. Going back to the main event, I don't know Lineker's got to be on the edges of title contention, but it's hard to see. I got to think that they're going to put somebody in his way. Whether it's Cody Garbrandt, whether it's what's his name, Brian Caraway. I don't think they're going to give Lineker a quick shot at the belt anytime soon because he keeps missing weight. He's a fun action fighter. He's awesome to watch. I love him. I hope he can get that title shot, but he can't miss weight for a title shot. I mean, they'll they'll either have to cancel the fight or make it a non-title fight, which makes no sense. If you're the champion, you don't want to fight somebody without your belt on the line, because if you lose, then suddenly the belt's just not worth much. So I don't know what the UFC can do with Lineker right now. They've got to get him and his weight figured out, because he's a fun, awesome fighter to watch, and I'd love to see him in more big fights. On that note, I'm going to wrap stuff up before I try and figure out how to talk to myself for too much longer. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. You can find me on Twitter at DZaneSimon. Give this video a thumbs up. That's down below on YouTube. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's MMANation.com, DOTCOM. You can find me over at Bloody Elbow. And stay tuned. Next week, we'll be getting ready for UFC 204. We'll have Knuckle Up, Care Don't Care, If I Did It, 6th round, heavy hands, vivisection, all that good stuff. So thanks for everyone for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.